And that's why every time you saw them get into trouble, they was reflecting back to Egypt. Oh, we had this in Egypt. Now, Egypt was the one that was causing you all your headaches while you was in Egypt. They're the ones that had you in bondage. And all of a sudden now the Lord has set you free from all of that. But now you're not being nursemaided into going into the promised land. You're going to have to face some things. You're going to have to face some challenges and still stand firm in your relationship with the Lord. And far too many of us are unwilling to do that. We want things to be easy. And when I say that, I realize also that I'm in America, and America still, even to this point, is a very affluent society. We have a lot of stuff. Even now, we have, and a lot of us don't realize that we have much less today as Americans than you've had even a few years ago. But still, you're one of the most prosperous nations that have ever existed literally in human history. And so, because of our affluence, we have a tendency to want things on our terms. We want everything. It's like, uh, you know, we want everyone to be our Mr. French to serve. We want everything on our terms. We want things to happen when we want them to happen, to the extent that we want them to happen, ad infinitum. That's not going to serve you well in the times that we're moving into. More importantly, it will definitely not serve you well when it comes to your relationship with the Lord. Because when you approach life in that way, it shows that you're at the forefront, not God. Therefore, you and your actions are going to be displeasing to God. Always understand this. We have a tendency to use this, the expression God. But I'm finding that even though that's important and it's okay, but one of the our concept of God need to be adjusted to a significant extent. And it seems as if what might be better for us if we can think in terms of king, sovereign, and if we because we're used to in this world, in this realm, you have a better idea of the role of a king or a sovereign as opposed to what we call our gods, because most of us in our times, when it comes to a god, we tell our gods what to do. This is why we're always talking about commanding God, and the Lord is going to do this for me. And I hear people constantly saying what the Lord said and what the Lord is going to do for me. And I must wonder, what are you doing for the Lord? I'm not talking about what you say you are doing for the Lord, but what are you doing for the Lord? What has God laid to your charge to do? And you're doing it with all your heart. And that's a question that I can't answer for you. You're going to have to answer that question for yourself. And you'll know when you're doing it from the depth of your heart, when you're not getting any pats on your back, but you're still doing it. When nobody knows that you're doing it, but you're still doing it. When nobody see you doing it, but you're still doing it. Or when individuals see you doing it and they're standing opposed or in opposition to you and you're still doing it. When it's not convenient for you, you're doing it anyway. That's when you know you're doing it for the Lord and you're doing it with all your heart. But when you start picking and choosing, complaining, and all that other kind of stuff, we have some questions there. But we're going to go on. Now, so we read for you Deuteronomy 30 and 6, as well as 6 and 5. So in both of those verses, it puts forth God's objectives and God's promise to us and to our children, especially in verse 6. But the thing is, God is not going to force this upon him. God doesn't have to force that circumcision. Circumcision is something that you have to do willingly, because otherwise you're still not in covenant. You can make a slave do it or what have you, but if But if you're in covenant, and a covenant goes beyond just an agreement, but if this is the token of your covenant, then it's something that's done according to your will. You will it so. But we're going to go on. Now, the next three, we're talking about Matthew, Mark, and Luke, are accounts of Jesus' response to the question, as I was mentioning earlier, from these religious leaders of the day that was trying to trap Jesus. In Matthew 22 and 37, Jesus said unto them, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all of thy soul, and with all of thy mind. And now, if you look at this word love, in the church, a lot of times we look at that, and when we see the word love, we always thinking about agape. That's the love of God. But this word love here, when it says to love the Lord thy God with all your heart, he's not talking about agape. Agape is God's love that he gives to us. This word here in the Greek is agapeo. That's our love that we give and we extend and we put forth to God. So in this verse, love, that word love is not agape. It is agapeo. It is our love that we are giving to God, not God's love being given to us. So we are to love God. We are to give literally our whole heart, mind, soul, and so forth to him. Let's go and read Mark real quickly. And it says in verse 12 and 30, it says, And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all of thy heart, with all of thy soul, with all of thy mind, and with all of thy strength. He says, this is the first commandment. You know, one of the things we have at the end, let me just go in and read verse 30, and then there's something I want to mention to you. Luke 10 and 27 says, And he answering said, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all of thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all of thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself. And so going back to Mark 10 and 30, the last little line there says, This is the first commandment. And this is the thing that I was about to share with you a moment ago. Think about this. He is ordering or commanding us to love. He's not leaving it up to our choosing. So if you're going to have the kind of relationship that at least we say we want with the Lord, you're going to have to do it his way. This is an edict given to every believer, to everyone that says that they love God. And so another thing, when God, especially when you look here, Jesus is speaking to pretty much anyone that is hearing him. When you look at the verses in Deuteronomy, he was talking to his people. And so the point I'm trying to make is he is not trying to order or command the entire world to love him. But he is telling his people, if you don't want to be like the rest of the world, then this is what you have to do. In essence, this is not an option. If you're going to have the relationship with the Lord that you say you have or you desire or want to have, then you're going to have to love him with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Now, just as an aside, I wanted to also just kind of give us some insight on what these three areas of our beings are. Man is a triune being. And so he's a soul. The real you is a soul. Man is a soul. And the soul is our seat of consciousness. That's how we get our awareness. That's how it's that seat of thought, understanding, feeling, desire, affections, and so forth. So that's a soul. That's our core being. Even though when you look at those other aspects of us, they seem so seamlessly, they seem so seamless. And the reason for that is because they operate in oneness. And this is why oneness is so important. We're not going to really get into that right now. So the soul is our seat of consciousness. And then the mind is our seat of rational thought. It is our inherent ability, and they're connected. The mind and the soul are connected, and they operate in oneness with one another. In the mind, we have another level of understanding, feeling, desires, personality, and thinking within our minds. And then lastly, our physical body. Our physical body is our seat of natural cognition, our seat of physical abilities, where the senses, the feeling, and all those things. And see, it is through our the physical aspect of us, again, that area of cognition that we have, that give us the ability, or give man the ability to operate in this natural world. Therefore, we can see things and distinguish what it is and what have you. The interesting thing, just using the sight as an example, the only reason why you can see sight is because your eyes have the ability to pick up literally rays of light and what have you. But that's a little aside. Won't even get into all of that. But my point is, when you look at your physical body, it gives us the ability to operate fluidly within this natural world. And so the way to kind of understand this better is like an astronaut being in a space suit doing a spacewalk in outer space. The only reason why he can do the things that he's doing because he's in the spacesuit, and through that spacesuit, then he can do the various things that he does, and he can live in outer space